Here I'd like to first invite on stage Ms. Meenakshi Nevatia, Country President and Managing Director of Pfizer India, for her opening remarks. Ladies and gentlemen, can we have a big round of applause and welcome Ms. Nevatia on stage. A very warm welcome to you.
Thank you so much and good morning everybody. So it's a pleasure to kick this off with the future of healthcare in India 2047. And you heard some of my colleagues in the morning. I think what Sri Sudhanshu Pant laid out was in a way a starting point for that. And Suresh, you talked about 3% volume, 3% value and the significantly higher volume. How do we change that dynamic? So what I wanted to do was really, instead of making a presentation, I thought it would be helpful to just put out there some kind of a framework that we can really think about that future, because it's we do it in our business all the time, right? All of you are leaders in your respective areas, and you do lay out a vision for the future, which then makes you think about what you want to do today. So that's what I would try to do to kick this session off. And I just put, just to throw it out there, an ABCD framework. Now, what does it actually mean? I'd start by talking about A, which is access and affordability. And Sri Pant talked a lot about it. How do we actually make sure that all patients in India, when they need something, they can actually get it? So it's a function of both access as well as affordability, and I'll talk a bit more about it. The B in my ABCD stands for breakthrough innovation. And when I came into this meeting, it was more about how do we get innovation for our patients in the country so that they can use it. But after listening to Marut's presentation, I'd add the whole dimension of Gen AI into that breakthrough as well, which is how do we first get the right products to our patients, but also how do we make sure the right information is coming to our customers and patients in the right way. So I think there are many dimensions of breakthrough. The third thing I want to talk about, the C in my ABCD, is about comprehensive patient care. And if you just step back and think about how far we've come with the Aadhaar card, how far we came with COVID, to have an application that was rolled out pretty much overnight that can track everybody's vaccination status. But when it comes to electronic medical records, when it comes to having a single view of a patient, it's practically impossible. So somehow, how do we move to that model where when somebody walks into a primary care center, there is at the press of a button, there is at least some dimension about this person, not just the age and the gender, because that's obvious, but much more about things like their vaccination status, their disease status, their family history, their genetic history, etc., which should be possible, but right now it's a huge dream. And the D in that ABCD for me stands for diagnosis at the right time, because at least I've seen in my friends and family, even for people who are educated in urban cities like Mumbai and Delhi and have the financial resources to find the right doctor to give the right diagnosis for simple diseases can sometimes take a long time. And how many more patients we could save if we could diagnose at the right time. So that is the ABCD framework I wanted to put out there. If we can imagine a world where, we talked a little bit about Ayushman Bharat, and yes, Sri Pant talked about the huge number of patients that are actually benefiting from it. But when you actually boil it down to how many therapies are available in Ayushman Bharat, how do we make sure all our products are actually in there to the extent possible? That is that first pillar, access and affordability. A lot of responsibility on us to come up with ways to launch our products at the right price. But a lot of partnership needed with the government to think about how do we make it affordable, how do we accelerate private insurance, how do we launch an HTA framework that can do justice to the price in the country. A lot of work to be done there. The B, I want to talk about breakthrough, and I think maybe we'll talk a bit about ease of doing business later on in the day. But if we could crack the whole pricing regime, if we could have a regulatory framework that's completely harmonized with the rest of the world, that the moment a drug is launched in the US, very quickly we can bring the drug to India. And if we could have a regime where it wasn't just about price and regulation, but from a patent perspective, not for protection. I think the world of protection is over, but just as an incentive to innovation. If we had that in place, imagine how many more breakthroughs could come into the country. Right now, we looked at some data, and typically it's about 48 to 60 months between US launch and India launch. And for some of our companies, it could be longer, it could be shorter, but there is, in those 5 years, It's not just about a delay, it's actually about many patients never ever getting to see the benefit of that drug. So there's a lot of work to be done. That's the B. Comprehensive patient care I did talk about, but I truly think, with Aadhaar, of course, that was a breakthrough. When COVID happened, I think it's not actually a platform anywhere in the world. It's only in India, where all of us are registered on it and our vaccination status is known. So I think that's the dream for electronic medical records, and then I come to DN diagnosis. So that's the framework, just one framework out there. I'm sure there'll be many others, but I just thought it's helpful to get you all thinking, to get us all thinking in some kind of a structured way of what that 2047 could be. Because once we define that, then we can start working towards it. So the second part of what I wanted to say was, what will it take to get there? And Sri Arunish, who's our new DOP secretary, I was in a meeting with him a few days ago, where his main focus was, let's together break down the silos. Now what silos is he talking about? He's talking about the silos between government and private. How much trust do we have between each other that we're all working for the same cause? I would talk about the silos between Indian and multinational companies. We somehow see ourselves as different, but ultimately we are the same. We are, Indian companies want to become multinational, and trust me, all multinational companies want to become Indian. I can speak from my own company. For all intents and purposes, we have 6,000 employees, 125,000 shareholders. We've been in India more than 70 years. I know Bayer was 120, so we've all been here much longer than any of us have. And we've got all our clinical trials are done in India. 70% of what we sell as Pfizer is made in India. So actually it's really the same. We are all together, but somehow we have this divide which makes us see the world differently. And I think that silo is also quite important. And the third silo I'll talk about, other than government and private, Indian multinational, will be industry and academia. I think we are operating on two different velocities. I'll use Marut's word. It's two different velocities, two different objectives, and how do we collaborate together. So that would be my biggest ask of all of us as we think about, if you buy into the ABCD, my biggest ask would be how do we think about together through the course of today, breaking down the silos, and the second thing I'll just adhere to is, how do we think about some very, very specific metrics. Because like me, I'm sure all of you attend many sessions, you come to many such meetings where we have a lot of discussion, but then how do we actually make it tangible? What are the metrics we are going to measure ourselves against? So I would like to, ask all of us to just think about the ultimate patient metric. We all agree, it's patient outcomes. But the ultimate, the path to getting there, I think sometimes there is a different perception about what will it take to get there. So those would be my two asks, which is let's use today to really break down those silos, not see ourselves as different parts of an equilibrium, but just together in the equilibrium, and I'm sure we can make magic happen. And I think the second thing would be to just think about what would be those 2 or 3 metrics that we can hold ourselves accountable to, that we as OPPI can track and actually really see progress, whether it's number of patients enrolled in Ayushman Bharat, whether it's number of dollars spent per patient, whether it's number of launches and how quickly it's coming to India, whether it's the range of products that are available in India. I mean, there are so many things to track, but let's try to think about those top 5 metrics, and I'm sure we'll make tremendous progress towards 2047. So that was what I wanted to share, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much for being here, and we'll move to the next part of the agenda, which is a panel discussion on this very topic. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Ms. Nevatia. I request you to please stay with me. I request one more time Mr. Anil Matai to please join us on stage and present a small token of our gratitude to Ms. Nevatia. Can we all give a big round of applause to Ms. Meenakshi Nevatia? Thank you so much for sharing that structural opening remark. Thank you very much, ma'am. Thank you, sir.